Welcome to the Mavarick AI Podcast. Today we're joined by Brian Minehane to explore the skills behind net zero and how sustainability professionals are developing the capabilities needed to drive real decarbonisation. So to start, Brian, could you share a bit about your background and your work in helping professionals and organisations develop the skills needed to deliver sustainability and decarbonisation goals?
Sure, Aisling. Thanks for the invite and glad to be here. As Aisling said, my name is Brian Minehane. I wear two hats. I lecture in Trinity College in Dublin on carbon accounting and life cycle assessment, and also on the executive education in the business school on sustainability measurement and ESG reporting. That's one hat. It's the education side of things. The other hat I wear is in private business. So I'm a principal in the Sustainable Business Group, but also head of digital sustainability. So if you like, I come at it from two perspectives. One is educating people, bringing up awareness, helping them to understand what sustainability is about and the skills they need. Second one is in private practice. We deal with SMEs and multinationals and help them on their journey to sustainability, but also net zero.
And why do you think capability building or the people side of sustainability is just as critical as technology or strategy when it comes to achieving net zero?
Actually, this is a great question. When I saw it, I smiled because we define steps to sustainability. And number one, would you believe, is identify the people to lead the cause and champion sustainability. If you don't have the right people, both from a passion perspective, but also from a skills perspective, then your journey is going to be difficult because you get to bring in outsiders, potentially contract an outsource to do it, or a sustainability company. So if you build the capability internally, as well as partnering with others to meet the goals, then it makes the job a lot easier.
And from your experience working with professionals across industries, where do you see the biggest skill or capability gaps when it comes to decarbonisation?
The fear factor is what we'd call out. So people think about it as a new area, a new sector. Actually, it's been around for quite a while. It's over 30 years since we first engaged in sustainability. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals were put in place in 2015. So the awareness is the biggest thing we see as a gap. People have a fear factor of it. Getting over that fear factor and helping them to understand simplifying sustainability is our mantra. Then if we can simplify it and make it a common day language within their corporations, explain to them that it's not a difficult journey once you engage. It's like anything. If it's a new technology, once you engage in it for the first time, you become more familiar. And our causality chain, if you like, shows that if you're familiar with the concept, you apply more importance to it. If you apply more importance to it, then you actually engage and start driving your sustainability journey.
Many organisations are investing in sustainability training, but not all of it leads to real behavioural changes. So what do you think it is that separates effective learning from tick the box learning?
Yeah, it's a good question again, because certainly in academia, I see those that are badge collectors. They want to get the sustainability credential. They want to have the certificate and put it on their CV. But actually, when you go into corporations, you have a lot of people who may be trained. They need a role to apply it within their jobs, and they need a team. It could be a corporate team. It could be a green champions team, but something to engage in. I think the other thing is that if the corporation's values aren't aligned to sustainability, or for example, their customers aren't demanding it, then it can fall by the wayside very quickly. So you can get a lot of people being trained, understanding the concepts, the principles, and where you might need to go. But actually, if there's no driver from the top down within the corporation, then it doesn't actually go anywhere. Let me give you another example. So we talk about in sustainability double materiality. And double materiality, I get this question a lot, is what does it mean? So what it means is that you look at your impacts as a corporation on climate, on social, on governance aspects of sustainability. That's looking from the inside out. But then you also look from the outside in. What impact is the climate having on us? And when we talk about supply chains, that's critical, especially if you're in something like the food sector, FMCG retail, where we're seeing increased events that could impact raw material supplies on the upstream side. That impacts the customer's availability on the downstream side. So we talk about double materiality, and if corporations assess their double materiality, then they have reasons to actually address them, especially if customers demand it. That actually gives a wherewithal and a means to actually drive policy, strategy, and then action plans. Those that are then trained in sustainability are able to jump on board, engage in those programs, and drive outcomes for the company.
And how are sustainability and business leaders balancing the short-term need to deliver results with the longer term need to embed new ways of thinking and new ways of working?
Yeah, again, very interesting question. So you'll be familiar with the current legislation and regulation and how it's changing. So the EU defined the Green Deal, and that's, if you like, the nirvana goal for us to get to stay within 1.5 degrees of global warming. And that also aligns to the SBTi targets for net zero. I think the challenge is that there's been a bit of a backlash in the geopolitical situation globally. So the EU has taken a good hard look at the complexity of reporting, especially in the corporate sustainability reporting directive, CSRD, and they've retrenched a little bit. So now only corporations of 1,000 or more staff and 250 million are mandated to report. Those on the smaller scale, especially SMEs, are under voluntary SME reporting. So it means they don't have to, but they need to have other drivers or return on investment to actually report. Now, interesting example, I've talked to a lot of SMEs even in the last couple of months, and they're looking at the drivers and the return on investment for themselves. One of the big ones is customer demand. If customers are demanding that you actually have a sustainability policy, strategy, or action plan, then that actually drives motivation internally. It raises the importance, raises the demand for skills and training, and then the outcomes in terms of reporting. So what we're seeing is that if in corporations, there is a demand from customers, stakeholders, and even their downstream suppliers like multinationals, it increases the awareness and it drives change.
And if you could give one piece of advice to professionals who want to upscale and play a bigger role in their organization's decarbonisation journey, what would it be?
Don't wait. People tend to think, okay, I need a certain amount of skills or I'm unsure, so I'll wait and see what comes next. Don't wait. There's a lot of short courses, medium courses, and even degree courses, and a growing demand for them. Certainly in Trinity College, we're seeing that growing demand. But also if you look online and learning platforms like LinkedIn Learning, there's lots of short courses you can take. It raises the understanding and awareness, and that actually means people engage sooner. So my key action, and I put it up in slides all the time, is don't wait. Start your sustainability journey sooner, because if you make yourself aware, it raises the importance and it raises the change that you can bring.
What makes you most confident that the next generation of professionals will be equipped to lead the net zero transition?
I'm going to answer that in a slightly different way if I can. So the professionals being equipped is one side of it, but the big driver is that things are not changing fast enough when we talk about decarbonisation, climate change, and impact on supply chain. We know that the global warming is happening. We've reached 1.5 for the first time. Yes, it's shifting up and down slightly depending on whether you look at the World Meteorological Organization and depending on where in the world you are. But right now we're heading for a situation of 2 degrees as an example, and that brings with it higher impacts, whether it's water scarcity, whether it's storms causing supply chain shortages in food, for example. Heat is a big issue, for example, in Italy. We know there's been deaths every summer because the temperatures are rising enormously up to 40 degrees plus. A brilliant example, in Switzerland, 2,000 ladies took the Swiss government to court over the lack of impact in changing on climate, and they won. So it was a landmark case for governments having to raise their eyebrows and make themselves more aware if they're not already aware, and then drive change across their national but also international focus areas. So I think the need is still there. That hasn't gone away. And in fact, the longer we delay on action and mitigation and adaptation and resilience, the worse it's going to get. So that's the first thing. Second thing is for professionals, again, I'll go back to the make yourselves aware. I think if you focus on one area of ESG, environment comes across in our surveys as the most important. But actually, in a most recent survey, governance and social sides were also quite high. There was a slight imbalance, E being the highest, G being the second, and S being the third, but they were quite high on the percentage importance for corporations. I think the other thing when you talk about multinationals and if professionals want to focus on a certain area, looking at the reporting schemas and frameworks. So CSRD is the big one, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. There's about 1,100 data points within that, and they're a mix of E, S, and G. So you can pick one area. Very few people are specialists across all the areas. But again, high level awareness. And then if you want to drill into an area, pick one or more. And some are specialists in it, for example, human rights. And when we talk about supply chains and decarbonisation, we also need to look at things like human trafficking, modern slavery, and make sure there are none of these double materiality risks within our supply chains, both upstream but also downstream. So it's a complex area, or seems complex for those that aren't involved in it, but delving in, getting some skills at the high level, and then driving into specific areas that you're interested in, that would be my advice. Start with an everything you can eat approach, but then delve into the areas that you think you can make a difference within your corporation and on a personal basis as well. Let's not forget the personal basis. And the example I give here is, we know there's billions of people on the planet and growing, but in Europe, if we take an example, there are 26.1 million SMEs. And SMEs contribute, I think, over 53% of the value outside of financial services. So on an individual basis, on a small corporation basis, big change can happen, as well as at the multinational level where there is mandated reporting.
So we'll just finish off then with 2 quick fire questions. So the first one is, one emerging skill or learning trend that you're most excited about right now?
I'm a long time in the IT industry, 37 years. I've worked for some giants like HP, Dell, Fujitsu ICL, also pharma, and some small SMEs. Digital sustainability, 2 words I know, but I would be looking at digital sustainability, how we can drive change using things like AI, how we can look at supply chains, get the data we need to drive data-driven sustainability, not just for reporting, but also for metric measurement, targeting our KPIs. What are we going to focus on? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to change it? And what does the plan of action look like? There's this misconception that everything has to be done quickly and soon. That's not the case. So when you look at the EU Green Deal, it's a multi-year, if not multi-decade approach. It doesn't have to be end of next year or end of the year after. Starting the journey, as I said earlier, is critical. Targeting your policy strategies and action plans. But the big thing is, how do you record all this data? I'll give you an example. The EU Deforestation Regulation, EUDR, due diligence statements will be required for each delivery. And that means that a huge set of digital documentation is going to be flying around EUDR. And it's delayed slightly, we believe, because of the platform. So I think getting your head around digital sustainability, what tools you need from a digital perspective, how you record your data, how you measure and report, and how you can change that over time.
And the biggest myth about sustainability training or careers that you'd like to bust today?
It's too complex is the myth. And therefore I won't engage. No. As I said earlier, our mantra is sustainability simplified. And once you start, like anything, once you start on the journey, once you gain a rudimentary understanding, get the high level, and then delve into the areas that matter to your company or to you personally, it becomes easy, as with everything.
Thanks, Brian. We hope our listeners found the discussion valuable and gained a fresh perspective on how capability and skills are shaping the journey to net zero.
Thanks, Aisling, for the time. Really enjoyed it.